I'm Abby Ayers, and I was married to a wonderful man. His name was Jonathan. The things that I loved about him was he was just intentional with the gospel and taught me to be intentional with it as well. But I think he loved it and loved sharing the gospel. He led his home well. I loved the way that he pursued me with a Christ-like love from the day that he met me until the day that he died. So he would he still opened the door for me every time to put me in the car. He made me breakfast every morning. You know, just those things. I felt like he just loved me in a way that only God could do. His favorite verse was Philippians 1:21. It was, for me to live as Christ and to die as gain. And that's how he lived, and that's how he died. I remember one Tuesday, I needed some tires on my car, and he had taken my car to get some tires. And later on, I found out that he had helped someone at a hotel, a couple, and he had given them money, which they directly went in and put on their rent. And the police in Toccoa saw this and wanted to speak with him about it, but they weren't in uniforms. And so it scared him, and he tried to get away. And when he tried to get away, the police officer shot him. And so when he was shot, he tried to drive himself to the hospital and ended up wrecking the car. And then he was taken to the hospital. But I remember as I finally got there and was able to see him, the first things that came out of his mouth were, "I didn't do anything wrong. I love you, and take care of yourself." He waited on me to get there. And then they wheeled him to surgery, and he never made it back. And so that day at 25, my husband was 28. He went on to be with the Lord. I became a widow, and I was getting ready to become a single mom because we had just found out that we were expecting our first child. And so life from that moment was very different than what I had been living before. I had to move. I felt like I was in one of those movies, you know, where the camera goes round and round, somebody's like spinning out of control. I felt like my life was spinning out of control because I had to plan a funeral. I had no idea how to do. I had to go to doctor's visits with our child that I was expecting. I had to get a grave marker for my husband's grave at 25. You know, I had to get a room ready for my baby that I was supposed to do with my husband, but I had to do alone. Probably from September until I had Jonathan in January, I went to work and I came home and I laid in the bed and I cried every night. But the Lord knew I was going to need that baby, and I would just be so in the depth of my sorrow. And I remember that in the middle of the night, when everybody, you know, the Lord never addressed me the way that everybody else did. He never addressed me the way that the world did. It was always in the depth of that sorrow, in the middle of the night, he would whisper. In the quiet of the night, he would whisper, "I love you. You're still mine. You're mine. And I love that baby that you're carrying. This is still my home." You know, and I think he was drawing me. I was already his, I know. But now, because of what we've been through together, I never thought that the depth of our relationship could be what it was. So we're 9 years down the road. We're 9 years. My son is 9. My husband's been gone for 9 years. And look, there are still very difficult days. I'm going to give you an example of just a couple months ago. Jonathan came to me and he wanted to know really what happened to Dad. He said, "Mama, I want to know what really happened to Dad because I haven't shared everything with him. It was too heavy for him." And so I told him exactly what happened, and I remember his tears broke my heart. Watching your kid grieve is very different than you grieving yourself. You can do that. But watching your kid hurt with tears streaming down his cheeks and then being angry that his dad was taken away was one of the hardest things I've ever done too. And so I'm not saying that life is perfect now, because it's not. And I'm not saying that I'm totally healed and have moved on, because that's not the truth. I don't think there's ever going to be a day that I don't miss my husband and Jonathan. There's never going to be a day that he doesn't miss having a dad. When he graduates, he's going to wish his dad was there. And when he gets married, he's going to wish that his dad were there. And when he has children, he's going to want his dad to see them. So this is going to be lifelong grief that we deal with. But because of who the Lord is and his redemption and his grace, we can still be joyful. We can still have peace. And we can have a good life. So the July before my husband went on to be with the Lord, we were able to serve together in Zambia. I am so thankful for that trip, because it's the one and only time that we ever went overseas together. I was pregnant with Jonathan, and he shared the gospel faithfully. He went into the village. We would go into these huts, and Jonathan and I would share the gospel. I was able to share with several ladies who would come to know the Lord. You know, the light would turn on in their faces when they realized what they're being told. And so I had Jonathan and I, little Jonathan, baby Jonathan and I were able to serve in Nepal this past summer, and there was a full circle moment of watching Jonathan on his own. I didn't, tell him to. He wasn't forced to do this, but our child stood up in a chair in Nepal and shared the gospel with maybe a group of 40 people that had gathered. And it almost came full circle. I could see so much of his dad in that, because he stood up boldly on a chair, because he's short, and he stood up boldly on a chair in Nepal and shared his testimony and about how he thought he could be good enough, but he couldn't. And so it's only the Lord that can get you to heaven and that can save you. And so in that moment, I realized that it's not about who's in your home, but it's about what the home is built on. The foundation of Jesus Christ being the center of that, his word, worship, serving together. His foundation is what matters in your home.